Welcome back to Creating Cooperative Kids. I'm your host, Bill Corbett. Wikipedia defines unconditional love as affection without any limitations. Each area of expertise has a certain way of describing unconditional love, but most will agree that it is the type of love which has no bounds and is unchanging. Now, my next guests say that some parents have difficulty remaining fully present in their own lives in order to deliver that unconditional love. Dr. Dorothy Martin-Neville is an international speaker, a teacher, author, psychotherapist, and healer. After over 25 years as a psychotherapist, Dr. Dorothy Martin-Neville works closely with those who are in transition, helping them to live their lives passionately and vibrantly. Tom Russo is president and co-founder of L&R Productions, a full-service ad agency that specializes in writing and producing radio and television commercials. He is also a dad of 2 daughters and is working on his second book. Now, together, Dorothy and Tom are the co-authors of the book Unconditional Love, a book they wrote together that presents the wisdom and insight learned through experience and training about the trials, joys, and demands of parenting. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
I always love unconditional love, and I talk about it on a regular basis with my parents when I'm doing parent workshop or parent coaching. But you've taken an interesting spin on this, one that I actually had not really thought about. But tell us, first of all, tell us a little bit about what you each do, if you would, and then I want to know how you came together to become co-authors, and then let's talk about the book.
Go, Daddy.
I don't remember how we came together to do the book. Must be Tommy.
What do you each do individually, and then we'll talk about how you came together.
What I do is I'm speaking, as frequently as I can on 5 steps to claiming your dreams. I truly believe in living passionately. And I've been a therapist for now 30 years last May. I was 5 when I started, but I was a therapist 30 years now. And really working with individuals and couples to really bring them back to living their life, because so often they get lost.
They do,
so often they do, yeah.
Tom?
I've been a writer, producer, music producer, TV commercial producer, songwriter for really my entire life. And I did start at 5. I wrote my first song at 5 years old and have been lucky and blessed to be able to carry that tradition on all these years. I became a daddy close to 30 years ago, and needless to say, any parents that are viewing know that that really changes everything. And my commitment to parenthood became number 1 for me. And that to segue and answer your question, the idea of the book originally was inspired by a friend of mine who encouraged me to consider writing something about raising kids. She had liked my approach to raising my 2 daughters. And then Dottie and I met a few years later. I had kind of put the project on the back burner, and Dottie and I became friends, and I approached her and said, would you consider co-authoring with me? And I was grateful, to say the least, that she said yes, and that's how the process got going.
So the 2 of you collaborated on this project. How long did it take you to write this book?
About 1.5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. And what was your intent? What was the mission behind this project?
We each had a different mission because we each had something different we wanted to bring to it. And for me, it was so important to deal with those adults, especially women that I see in therapy, but to work with those folks who get lost in the process of parenting, where they cease to exist. Their illusion that when you love somebody completely, you cease to exist. So they lose all sense of their own needs, their own wants, their own desires, and they focus solely on somebody else. I truly wanted to get the message out there that that is the most unhealthy thing in the world you can do. You're also teaching your child they don't have the right to exist when they become an adult.
And that's tricky because when the children leave the nest, if the mother's whole identity is the child, they're taking the mother's identity with them, right?
You're right.
Wouldn't you agree?
That's the empty nest syndrome.
Then they have to reinvent themselves, or they suddenly discover when the kids are gone that what's left of the marriage or whatever else. What about you, Tom? What was your part of the project?
Well, first to make, to convey the message that men and women can play nice and work cooperatively in a project. I'm teasing there. I think primarily for me it was societal scripts to this day still suggest, both overtly and insidiously, that men are often considered to be second-class parents. They're not number one. And so I wanted to convey to lots and lots of dads out there that though we're different in our approach to parenting than the mom is, that doesn't make us second class at all, that our children's need for daddy kinds of love is just as important as it is for mommy's kinds of love. And so to be able to share, and as the book unfolds, you'll see in certain areas that Dottie and I agree on a lot of things, but there are times that humorously we politely disagree.
We also bring in points where Tom's Italian and I'm Irish. So we bring in very different ethnicities to how we do things as well. So looking at men do things differently than women, but neither one does it the one right way. We both do it effectively, but from very different perspectives because of our sex as well as because of our ethnicity. Because many couples have mixed ethnicities in their marriage, and there needs to be an honoring and a respect for that.
And you bring up an interesting point, Tom, because what I've in my 20 years of working with parents, parent coaching, and doing workshops and teaching parenting classes, a lot of times the father is at a little bit of a disadvantage for a couple of reasons. One is, especially if he was raised by a very domineering mother, then he's got the sense that, well, parenting belongs with my wife and not me. I really don't have a role.
Right.
My job is to be the elephant up and down the hall with the kids riding on the back, and then I'm going to go watch the game. And then the first thing you know, she's complaining, why don't you help me with parenting? Or the other thing that I've noticed a lot is the women tend to be very critical of their husbands. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing it that way? And so when they kind of slam them a little bit with their parenting, they begin to recede and say, you know what, if you don't like the way I'm doing it, let me know when you need me, and I'm going to go watch the television.
And they disengage, and the impact on the couple is enormous. It's not just the parenting. And now you're raising children in a home with one of their parents is pretty invisible, which is so destructive to the kids.
Right.
And so this book, we start with pregnancy. I birthed both of my children. Tom has one child. Coward. Tom has one child he adopted and one child that was birthed.
Right.
And so we look at, and I'm adopted. So we look at this from the adoption component, we look at it through the birthing process, and we start with infants all the way up to now we both have adult kids. Because there's such a transition in who you are as a parent. Because you need to allow your kids to go through their own developmental stages, which puts you through developmental stages.
All ages are great ages, but demand different levels of parenting and consciousness to be able to connect to the child at 2 and up to 22 and beyond. So it really demands, as your intro indicated, that consciousness is one of the keys to being a great parent, to stay connected to yourself and subsequently to stay well connected to your child.
I was just working with a mom the other day, and she said, I set time up for someone to help me care for the children so I can go work out at the gym, or I can go have a latte down at the corner, and I'm feeling guilty. Is that guilt okay or not? And I said, you need to take care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Amen.
That's it. That's truly it. That's why I wrote this, because that's the standard response. I feel so guilty if I take time for me. I feel guilty if I'm not at every single practice. If I drop them off and pick them up, I feel guilty. I should stay there and freeze my bottom off at this practice. No, you shouldn't. Go do something else and come and pick. This child will survive the trauma and probably be thrilled because you're not hanging around watching. They can be much more comfortable. Plus, you're teaching a child independence. But it's so difficult because of these preconceived notions of what a good mother is. I had something on the fridge when my daughter was growing up, she was a teenager, and it said, good girls go to heaven, bad girls go everywhere. So I said, I do not want you to be a good girl. Because if you are a good girl, what you're doing is following somebody else's prescription of who you are supposed to be. If you are truly who you are, and I believe as an embodied soul, you're intrinsically holy and good. If you truly live in connection to yourself, you are going to fly and you will be ethical. You will be authentic. You will be real. And this is the message I wish women could get, that truly be who you are, and you would teach your child to absolutely be who you are. Then you love who your child is. You don't judge them by what they do.
And one thing that happens is, that I've seen, is a child is just acting out the way kids act out, and they said, "You missed my game yesterday," and then it's a stab in the parent's soul, and they go, "Oh, see, I shouldn't have taken time out for myself." But they have to learn to just build that shield of armor and go, "It'll be okay. They'll be fine." Tom, we only got a minute left, but just one message for dads from your perspective.
Well,
in writing
without
this
coming
book.
across as me too, what Dottie just did a great job of articulating is exactly it. That you really do need to stay in connection with your authentic self. And there is a profound mentoring that goes on if the child sees that you are really being you authentically day in and day out, consciously day in and day out. They learn that lesson and they respond accordingly. And most of the time, I'd like to believe, based on my children and other people that I know, that that response is a very favorable one. So stay true to yourself, daddies and mommies.
Right. And back to boundaries or not a lack of love.
Yes,
Children need to
definitely.
learn boundaries without a parent feeling guilty because they're limiting
Right.
their child.
Right. The book is Unconditional Love. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for
I
having
wish
us.
you both the best with your book,
Thank
and
you.
good luck on your next project.
Thank you.
And good luck on your traveling and speaking.
Thank
We
you.
got to do some talking later
Yeah.
on, so wonderful. Unconditional love as a parent means loving our children with no limitations. And as Dr. Dorothy Martin-Neville and Tom Russo taught us today, it also means not creating limitations to be who we are as individuals. Also on today's show, we met an author and an artist with over 20 children's books to his credit. We learned about the practice of EFT tapping to help children deal with negative emotions, and a health coach taught us that origins to some illnesses may be no further than the food on our plate. I hope you'll tune in to future episodes of this program as I offer more tools to help you rebuild your parenting toolbox as an awesome parent or teacher. If you're watching this on DVD or online and you'd like to get it on your local public access channel, contact my office to find out how. Making the world a better place to live begins at home as engaged, encouraged, and masterful parents. I'm Bill Corbett. I'll see you the next time on Creating Cooperative Kids.
Mm-hmm.